welcome to Extra Life. I'm Keza Macdonald.
I'm Ellie Gibson.
And this is the video game podcast for people who have at some point played a video. It's still not good, is it?
It's not. At least mine. So mine is the podcast for people who like video games. At least that's enthusiastic. That's excited.
I know. I feel like we're not iterating in the right direction. But anyway, today our guest is Mr. Charlie Brooker.
Hello, Charlie Brooker.
Hi, Charlie, who's of course best known for his stint writing for now defunct PC magazine PC Zone.
That's right. That is what I'm. Weirdly, this is like a humble brag, but I won an Emmy, right? And as
just drop it down first 30 seconds.
It just sounds like a brag. I've gone in full brag.
30
as I was
seconds.
walking up to the stage, apparently I didn't see the broadcast because I was in it, but apparently they said Brooker is known for writing an Oink comic in 1986. Where they'd obviously just gone to Wikipedia and were reading it out like live on air. I think I was an unexpected win.
But you have done some other stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Apart from writing for a comic and writing about video games in PC Zone in the 90s.
Yeah, but we can just talk about awards if you like,
Yeah.
Sorry, that really...
No.
Any other awards you'd like to mention?
Well, that's it. I went straight in on that.
Keza and I have...
Well, you know what? I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
That makes it better. If you win it but don't deserve it, that's acceptable in British culture.
Keza and I have both won Video Games Journalist of the Year at the Games Media Awards, so I think you'll find that trumps... I think 2 of those equals 1 Emmy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Keza?
I won the Journalist Award at the Games Media.
I won the Token Woman Award
Excellent.
at the Games Media.
I think I got a few of those as well. It's
now
definitely
you're
the
all
same.
just showing off.
Yeah.
This is just disgusting boasting.
This is how little they expected a woman to win it, was that in the goodie bag was this voucher for like a salon, a beauty salon, and I was like, oh, that's exciting. So I rang them up for an appointment and they were like, so do you want just the beard trim or... And I was like, what? And they were like, this is a barber's. This is a men's barber's. And I was like, can you do me legs? They were like, no. So, yeah.
What a waste.
Do you get a goodie bag when you win an Emmy? Do you get Rock Band or something?
They have these sort of gifting things that you can go to in like the hotels where you go and turn up and they'll give you all sorts of goodies. Yeah, like, probably a car. I don't know.
Video games. So PC Zone, writing for PC Zone, your most notable achievement, obviously, Charlie. But your proudest achievement, would you say?
Well, it's certainly up there, isn't it? That was my first writing job. I'd done comic strips and stuff before, and I thought you had to be qualified to review computer games. It's really weird. Even I got that job because I'd done sort of comic strip adverts for the Computer Exchange, which is now CEX, and the editor of PC Zone had seen them and sent one of the writers in to the shop to ask who did the comic strips. And I was supposed to do a comic strip for them, and I befriended David McCandless, who's one of their writers, and he said, "Why don't you write a review?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not. I don't have the qualifications. I don't. I don't know what I thought the qualifications were."
Do you think there's some sort of Hogwarts run by Shigeru Miyamoto or something where people go to learn to critique children's toys?
Charlie, what have you been playing lately?
Lately, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima, which I love.
That's a very, very detailed homage to Japanese samurai films.
That's not the bit I like.
Yeah.
The bit I like is I like the repetition of it. I like the loop. I am a fan of Far Cry style games where you get into a very repetitive loop where you're sort of approaching an enemy camp and sneaking in and killing everyone one by one. I think it must say terrible things about me. But I enjoy that. I've been playing that, and I've been playing Return of the Obra Dinn again because I played it the first time, and then now I'm persuading Connie to watch me play it because she's too lazy to use the controls.
Are you familiar with Return of the Obra Dinn, Ellie?
Isn't it? Is that the black and white one with is it the puzzly one?
Black and white murder mystery on a ship.
Come on before she kicks off.
Let me help you.
What madness is this?
Have either of you played it?
Yes.
I've not played it.
You
no.
must
Ellie
have
has
played
not.
it.
Yeah, it's a black and white murder mystery on a ship, basically.
No.
Ellie, if you haven't played it, why haven't you played it?
Because
it makes me
I tell you
quite
what,
angry that you haven't played it. It's on
because-
sale at the moment.
Because
Why haven't you played it?
Because I'm tits deep in heyday. I've got wheat to harvest. I've got carrot cakes to make. I've got diamonds to mine.
She's got a duck pond.
I've got to smelt some stuff in me smelter.
Oh, boo-hoo. Why don't you just get this? Why don't you get this game, which is one of the best games I've ever played? Why don't you just download it and play it?
It's truly
Looks
incredible.
hard.
Can you
Looks
explain
too hard.
for Ellie's benefit?
Yes, it is the black and white puzzly one. If you want to reduce it to that.
Why do you want to play a game that looks like photocopies?
It's a detective game. It's one of the few. You go on board a ship as rocked up in Falmouth in like 1805, and it's a bit Marie Celeste. It's completely deserted, apart from some dead people. Mm-hmm. And your job is to go in and find out how everyone on board died and identify them. You're like an insurance agent, which sounds incredibly boring, but you've got a sort of magic stopwatch that can take you back to the freeze frame moment at which somebody died.
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
And you're sort of wandering around inside like a 3D snapshot, and you have to piece together information. It's like a big detective game meets like logic problems. Did you ever do logic problems?
She's looking so thrilled.
Like
to be fair, you are making it sound thrilling.
Trust me, it's very, very, very interesting what it manages to do in terms of
It's one of those games
narrative.
that it makes you feel like a total genius. When you know how most games are like, hey, dumbass.
I get that from Heyday, mate. My bar is very low. My bar is very low.
But also, it looks all black and white and arty, innit?
It looks like it should be incredibly boring, but it's really, really,
I mean, you have made
good.
It sound so thrilling.
So I've been playing that, and I've been emulating lots of things on it's like a handheld gaming laptop. Have you seen one of these?
No.
It's like small. I could run and get it, but that's not very podcasty.
No.
Not very visual. You can emulate loads and loads of systems on it.
But obviously you pay the royalties to all the publishers, Charlie. Presumably you keep a notebook of you just write down.
Yes, obviously I do that. I'm not one of these people who would just go and download like the no intro ROMs set of everything that from Internet Archive.
No, and also you did at one point own all of those games in the past, so it's completely legal to own a copy.
I only emulate things that I developed myself. Yes,
like all of us,
and that's quite interesting. And also watching my kids play the Mario 3D All Stars thing has been a good. So I've had a lot of nostalgia recently.
Yeah.
Do kids like Super Mario 64 now?
Well, this is what you'd think. You'd think they wouldn't, but they do, or at least mine do, and they don't. Oddly seem to differentiate. I sort of look at it and go, the camera's rubbish. It's so annoying. But they don't really care. They've noticed it's in 4:3, so it's not widescreen. And they sort of said, so when did you play that? Is it that old? How old is it? Is it that they couldn't believe it was, 23 years old?
23, 24 years old, yeah.
Yeah, but again, let's look at their standards. These children, they're going, oh, what are mummy and daddy playing? That's exciting. Oh, it's a game that looks like a fax. By that standard, Mario 64, or whatever it is a thrilling, cutting-edge, contemporary adventure, isn't it?
You know what doesn't look good, really, is PlayStation 1 games don't look very good, because that was around that era where everything went 3D. No matter what it was, it had to be in 3D, even if it was like Tetris or something. And a lot of those games, I think now, a lot of the PlayStation 1 games look particularly awful. Or maybe that's just the moment we're in, and in about 5 years' time, that'll look really cool.
Yeah, all those hexagonal steering wheels and, yeah. What for you, then, was the golden age of gaming, Charlie? Was it that PC era, or was it the Marios?
I mean, it's weird in that, for me, the era I always remember is actually one where most of the games are nowadays or borderline unplayable. I mean, so in my head, I think the first magical sort of gaming experience I had was seeing arcade machines in the local swimming pool. Not in the pool, obviously. That would be a hazard. And you're talking like, I'm so old. You are talking about original Space Invaders and a game I think was called Circus. It was like an Atari game. It was like Breakout, and you had these two guys with a seesaw. And it was one of those ones that was so old that the screen was monochrome. You just have coloured stickers over it, translucent sort of coloured stripes that made the row of balloons you were popping look like they were multicoloured. And I remember thinking then it was fascinating that you could control what was happening on a television, which was a television being something I was obsessed by. So in my head, I think I'm constantly trying to chase that high, as it were. Even though if you go back now and look at those games, they're sort of unplayable.
I have a theory about this. I feel like there are certain games that you played when you were a kid that gave you some kind of massive dopamine hit.
Right.
And basically all I'm doing now is trying to find that again. I'm just searching through all the games trying to find that one that can give me that dopamine hit again. But it's never going to happen, and I should just accept it.
Oh, what a waste of a life, Keza.
I think that I didn't actively really lose myself in and enjoy games for many years until sort of probably a bit later. So I played a lot of Spectrum games back in the day. That was sort of my computer, was the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. But most of the games were quite fiddly and not that enjoyable. And I think I sort of liked the idea of them existing and the fact that you could control a character, walk left and right. I enjoyed that more than the game itself often, if you see what I mean. So like Manic Miner actually is really difficult. I probably rarely made it past like level 2, but I liked the idea of it.
I mean, having obviously worked in TV and games, Charlie, do you think that one of them is superior to the other, or I mean, isn't that not something we should even worry about, really?
I don't think it's worth worrying about, in that I think they're so different. They're such different things. I mean, oddly, I mean, it's weird. So I did Bandersnatch, which was an homage in many ways to the Spectrum days. I mean, I say in many ways. I mean, it was explicitly an homage to the ZX Spectrum days. And it was an interactive episode of Black Mirror that we did for Netflix. And that was my first experience of like creating a game, basically. But it's a very, very simple one that's running on like the Netflix platform, essentially. And there's so many headaches involved in that. And there's so many forms of learning curve you go on doing that. That's the closest I've come to sort of marrying the two things together. And really, I take very different things from games that I do from TV. So I'll sort of, like anyone else, spend the few hours of consciousness you have after the children have gone to bed while one of you is nodding off. We'll be sort of watching through a series on a streaming platform, like one by one. And then usually what happens is when my wife falls asleep, I'll then creep upstairs into the loft and play a computer game for hours. And I probably play games to relax or to forget the world and forget where I am and what I'm doing more than I do TV. I certainly play a lot more games than I watch films. It's weird. I could not be asked to sit down and watch a fucking film.
Oh, God, no.
I have that issue either as well.
Don't you think, oh, God, how long is it?
Yeah, I always have that.
2 hours?
Halfway through, you're like, oh, can we just stop? Should we just watch the rest of this tomorrow?
We went to see Endgame at the cinema.
Oh,
era.
God, no, don't do that.
I don't know, we had this idea that,
I've been trying to watch the Marvel films with my kids, and most of them are too long.
Yeah, we got as far as Ant-Man, I think. And then after about an hour, they were like, well, this is just Paul Rudd being alternately cute and frightened.
Because I thought Ant-Man was the perfect length. It was like an hour and 30 minutes or so. And the kids really enjoyed it. But then I tried to show them the first Avengers film, and I think it took 3 days. And we were literally 3 different sittings because they could not sit through the whole fucking thing. And then by the end, it was like, eat your greens. We've got to watch the end of this film.
Whenever I'm watching a Marvel movie, I just think, I wish I was playing this. I'd be having more fun if I were playing this. I just wish this was a game. This would be a really fun game.
Yeah.
Why do people complain about like that thing when people sort of profess to be mystified as to why someone would want to watch somebody playing Minecraft for hours on YouTube, and then you go and watch a Marvel film at the cinema? You're watching Captain America just smash everything up for hours. What's he doing? I'd prefer it if like there was somebody in the bottom right corner going, whoa, really smashed that building up. Look at that. That would be much. All films should have a YouTuber in the bottom right.
Do you replay games, Charlie? Like, I know some people who are like, oh yeah, just had another quick go at The Witcher 3. And I'm like,
no.
How?
Apart from, Return of the Obra Dinn, I have been going back through, but that's because I wanted Connie to enjoy it as well. But usually that is very much not the norm. I mean, I've played the first level of lots of things many times.
Yeah.
You're talking about old arcade games, which were punishingly, like, incredibly difficult and had a vested interest in being unpleasant and difficult because they wanted you to pump more money in. Other than that, I don't think I've completed many games. I don't think I've probably completed about 10% of any, if that, I would say. But usually because I move on or I drift away or I lose interest. I'm not a completist. I'm not one of those people. I think people who have to go back and 100% something are insane. Like, what is that, to me, is somebody who's not got enough fear of their own mortality. So our eldest, who is 8 now, has always been obsessed with games. And it was my fault because I remember handing him an Xbox controller. He must have been about 2 and trying to get him to play Trials Fusion because you can sort of press the accelerator and the brake. And so he's played lots of things since then. And I showed him Jet Set Willy on a Spectrum emulator on a phone, and he sort of had a go on that. He's played a lot of the Mario games. He played Mario Odyssey. And obviously in that, there's that whole sort of, there's a dynamic in that where you jump onto the walls and it turns into an 8-bit sort of game. And so in his head, there's very little distinction, I think, with those things. And Mario Maker as well has got a lot of that vintage stuff sort of mixed into it. I haven't needed to encourage them to play anything because they're constantly trying to sort of play everything. It's interesting at the moment they've started just playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like the remastered Tony Hawk's, which I find endearing because they kept Tony Hawk and Co. They made them the age they are now, and they're about the age I am now. So there's something really poignant about watching these like slightly gone to seed people falling off. And I swear they take longer to get up when they fall off now, and they're a bit, my life. Oh. I was trying to get them to play Street Fighter the other day. They were not interested because they don't particularly like competitive games.
But they're into violence.
Hang on, what's the point of having more than one child if you can't pit them against each other?
I know. So they've been playing a lot of Minecraft Dungeons, which is cooperative and things like that. They like Human Fall Flat and things like that. But no, most of the time they're telling me about something. They'll have watched Dan TDM play something.
There's so many YouTube stars that I now unwillingly know the names of.
Today is all about the old school with the Retro Game Challenge. Now, the game of choice is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which came out in 1999 on the PS1.
I will defend Dan TDM.
He seems like one of the good ones.
I think, like most people, true to form, I think when I first sort of stumbled across them watching a YouTuber, I walked in and went, "What's this rubbish you're watching? Why are you watching this rubbish? And why aren't you watching something like the young ones on like iPlayer?
Why don't you go outside?
You watching an episode of Monty Python or something decent? Why
Crossroads, at the very least. It's part of your history.
And then I sort of thought, oh, actually, he's all right, this bloke. Oh, I quite like him. And he tends to play a lot of sort of weird little like that Getting Over It game, which is sort of...
Oh, Bennett Foddy. He makes games that are about... So the first one he made was a game. It was a running track and field kind of running game, except you controlled the thighs and calves with Q, W, O, and P.
Oh, I like it.
Even getting over the start line is an achievement in this game. Like just
and you
control.
can't even
control
cheat by
just the
putting
legs.
your lighter on the buttons. Like in
No, it doesn't
the
work
original
that way.
track and field. Oh, it's disappointing.
And then getting over it is you're a little topless dude in a cauldron, and you've got a pickaxe, and you have to try and climb a mountain.
Oh.
And the thing that makes it both infuriating and fun is that Bennett Foddy himself is narrating over it. Like,
starting over is harder than starting up. If you're not ready for that, like if you've already had a bad day, then what you're about to go through might be too much.
I believe in you, as you're like trying to get this dude in a cauldron up the mountain.
Well, that sounds quite motivating. That sounds like good life lessons there. What were the life lessons we got, you know? Well, if you're a girl, you're going to be kidnapped and put in a castle by a dragon once every year, and then you're
violence will solve all your problems.
Oh, brilliant.
Well, now hang on a minute. You see, now hang on a minute now. I believe you are describing Mario.
Correct.
But I don't believe Mario was a thing. Maybe, of course, everyone's younger than me. I think that the original Super Mario Brothers, I believe there's a lot of revisionist history about that in the UK. I don't believe that the original Super Mario Brothers was at all popular in Britain when it first came out.
You know what? It wasn't. So this is revisionist.
I don't think anyone played it.
They didn't. Like, Nintendo was not really a thing in the UK until the SNES in 1992.
Wait, I very clearly remember Duck Hunt. I never had it, obviously, but
No,
I very
you don't.
clearly remember.
You don't
You're
remember it.
imagining
No,
it, Ellie.
it's been put in your head by Edge magazine and by the mainstream fake news media has put this into your head. It's some weird video gamey version of like the Mandela effect. I wouldn't be surprised if those games were never released anywhere in the world. It's a lie. What I was going to say was that I like the fact there's these weird, quirky indie games now, like Getting Over It or Untitled Goose Game, that remind me of the Spectrum games that were sort of weird little homebrew sort of comedy games made by misfits in their homes.
Yeah, and often like one person's idea, which obviously Getting Over It is as well.
And here's Matthew Smith. Matthew, how on earth do you come to write a programme like Manic Manic?
I do shut myself away for a while. I think it's going to get to a stage where one person can't write a whole game.
Yeah, and that's what we were trying to hark back to in Bandersnatch. We were trying to sort of talk about sort of that side of things. And I feel like the emphasis in video game history is on, Super Mario Brothers 1, which is a brilliant game. I don't think the only place I ever saw that was in a box, I think, in a W.H. Smith, locked behind glass because it was so expensive. But I don't think anyone had them in Britain.
This is a bug, but my partner is 48 years old.
Yeah.
He has this exact problem. He's like, look, this great video game crash they're always talking about.
In less than a year, it went from a golden age to its darkest hour.
It was really the demise of the business, and we unfortunately didn't see it coming.
It didn't happen outside of America. We were all very happily playing Commodores and Spectrums and stuff. And it was booming when in America, the Atari crash was happening. And apparently Mario came along and saved video games. It didn't happen in the UK. People just didn't have it. So I believe you, Charlie. I think you're probably correct. And it did not happen in the UK at all.
My memory is that the first Nintendo machine that really made an impact in Britain, I think, was the Game Boy. Because I had a Game Boy. And that was the first time I played a Mario game, was Super Mario Land on the Game Boy.
Yeah, that was pre-SNES, wasn't it? It was late 80s.
And you're talking about the years when there would be like rave singles where they just sampled like the sound from any computer game of the early 90s and released them. There was a rave version of the Tetris theme and a rave version of the theme from Super Mario Land.
You're seriously claiming that no child in Britain had a Nintendo Entertainment System?
I'm not claiming that
claim.
No child in Britain had a Nentendo Entertainment System.
Like that's what you're saying.
I am claiming, I think with a degree of authority, is, at least I'm going to try and project an air of authority, is that very, very few people had one. Because I think they were very expensive and there were much cheaper you could get like an Amstrad or an Amiga or a Spectrum still at that point, or a Commodore 64. And the games cost, $5.99 or something, or you'd get a C90 tape full of, 20 games off your friend. Things like the NES were on sale, but the games were about 30 quid each, which I think then, it was sort of the cost of a holiday or something. Yeah. I didn't know a single person who had an NES, put it that way. And I knew
then that's a fact then, isn't it? It's a fact then. Yeah, there you are.
I don't see it.
Sold.
Therefore, it doesn't exist.
Where do games fit in your sort of life for you now, Charlie? Is it like, are they like silly children's toys? Is it this guilty pleasure playing in the loft while your wife's asleep?
That sounds so suspect the way you say it. No, there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not either playing one or tinkering about with something to do with them.
Have you done that thing where you built an arcade machine?
Yes. Okay. I didn't build it though. I mean, I got one and, I spend ages configuring things and
then never play them?
Setting up emulators and like more time curating. And I realized that I do that in a way that's exactly like, I used to sort of laugh at the notion of middle-aged men with a model railway in their loft when I was a kid. It was like, why you're a grown man. What's wrong with you? Why have you, you idiot? What's wrong, weirdo? And now I've realized that that's exactly what I do. Yes, I got a arcade cabinet and I'm always fiddling about with emulating this old system or that old system. And I spend all my time doing that rather than actually playing them, I guess, probably in much detail. In the same way that the guy building the model railway in his loft is obsessing over what the trees look like and having the right gauge for his track or whatever, rather than going, choo choo, I'm a train, which is what you're meant to do with a railway set. To sit there going, choo choo.
So it's neither
I'm an engine driver.
It's neither sort of childish diversion or guilty pleasure. It's a midlife crisis. Is that what we're saying?
It's absolutely 100% is a midlife crisis. I think it's the fulfillment of a childhood fantasy, isn't it? It's like, wow, now I'm a grown up. I can have the arcade machine in my house and no one can stop me. And not only that, it won't just play Space Invaders. It will play everything, including games I don't care about or love in any way.
Games that don't even work properly. Games that are literally unplayable.
But it's a huge nostalgia, because I used to work at CEX back in the 90s. So just before I was doing PC Zone, part of my job was to know the value of every game on every system.
Choo Choo Rocket original box.
Choo Choo Rocket's a good game.
I'm going to need a number.
What's the trade-in value?
It must be. There's probably an algorithm does it now.
I was hoping you would still have the muscle memory, because I used to, when I was 16, I worked in Sainsbury's on the checkout. And you know, like for the fruit and veg, you have to sometimes, they don't have a barcode. So you'd have to type in a number. They each had a code. My party trick for a while was remembering all the codes. So I'd be at a party, someone would go,
so good at parties.
Yeah, someone would go, watermelon, and I'd go, 5862.
Genuinely amazing at parties, is Ellie.
Can't do it anymore.
That sounds like an affliction more than a skill. I do still, if I see the covers of certain games, I'm like, oh God, we had loads of them. And I still have, if I have to untangle a drawer full of cables and leads, I get like instant sort of like flashbacks.
We've all got that box of long forgotten cables and leads that surely we'll never need again until we get rid of them, in which case we'll need them 3 days later.
And then you'll be ordering it off Amazon. That and it'll cost £87.
Do you ever miss the CEX days? Do you ever think, it was a happier, simpler time when all I had to do was untangle cables?
Miss the aroma, the distinctive aroma of a CEX?
Yes.
Not really. I mean, no, it was fun. Although I used to chain smoke. That was when you could smoke indoors, and I used to chain smoke. There was a period just after that when I was freelance and I was working for PC Zone. That was probably one of the more carefree chunks of life I can think of, because I had no responsibilities and my job involved playing computer games and then writing about them. And you'd write, like 5-page features on some abstract. So because it was, you were often writing about something abstract without any real character in it, you were ending up, it was a school for writing nonsense. And so that was one of the things that was
fill up your word count.
Really good fun about it. I remember seeing, it must have been like a beta or something like that of Doom. That's one of those moments you remember. I remember going into the office there, PC Zone was in the basement, and somebody went, look at this. And it was like a beta of Doom. And I couldn't believe, it was one of those moments when you can't believe what you're seeing. It was like, but that looks real. But the camera, it looks like it's bobbing up and down, because it had that slight sort of, I think it was just the weapon would sway. Oh my God, it looks like you're really there. And I think Doom was the most atmospheric. Elite was you could lose yourself in Elite, but Doom was a sort of whole mood you could lose yourself in.
I was baffled by people's love for Elite, the space game where you fly around and trade meteors. I don't know.
Yeah, and it just looks like it's been drawn with a
How
bit of chalk.
dare you be so dismissive of it?
Literally looks like...
At the time, that was a Spectrum. You could get a not great port of Elite on the Spectrum. But that really did feel, that was the first time I can remember playing a game where it really felt like you were in a living universe, even though it can't have done.
Will you become one of the elite, the space combateers, set apart by their total mastery of the spaceways?
Like No Man's Sky, which is another space game that uses very clever math to generate basically the whole universe and all the different planets with all their different weird animals on them. It's very, very impressive. And Elite kind of managed to do that, apart from in like one-dimensional graphics.
That's drawn with a biro.
This is your ship, a Cobra-class fighter trader, fast and highly maneuverable, but for the moment, only lightly armed.
I can appreciate it's an impressive bit of maths, but I just feel like
don't patronise us, Keza.
It's such a stretch to like...
Because isn't there a thing that... Because at the time, obviously, when you're playing Sentinel, the Sentinel was a game that was also amazing on the Spectrum. If you try and play it now, it will seem like dog shit. But it was an amazing, abstract, paranoid game. I can't even really describe it, where you were avoiding the gaze of this omnipowerful sentinel thing that lived up on a hill.
Like an Eye of
Sauron. To move around, you had to absorb trees and rocks. See, it doesn't make any sense. It sounds like I've just hit my head on something. But at the time, because the mechanics of it and because the graphics were so primitive, your brain had to fill in all the other details. And so with Elite, your brain was filling in so many details that 99% of what I was experiencing must have just been a projection from my own head. In the same way that, there's sort of very basic AI programs they had, Eliza type things where it'd go, hello, what's your name? And you go, Charlie. And it would go, hello, Charlie. how are you feeling today? And you'd go, sad. And you'd go, why are you feeling sad, Charlie? And like quite quickly you think, oh, I'm talking to a real person here. This is the best conversation I've ever had in my life. But it's because your brain is filling in all those gaps. So isn't it just that back then you had no choice? You were getting enough overload stimulus from the rudimentary graphics you were seeing, and you were sort of filling in the rest. Whereas now to try and go back and put your brain in that state is almost impossible, surely.
Basically, every game made before about 1992 only really exists in the minds of everyone who played them.
Yes.
The local navigation chart shows a clearer view of the planets in your immediate vicinity. One of the most important factors affecting your trade route will be the political situation of the planet. A greenhorn trader will not have sufficient combat experience to penetrate the swarms of pirates that surround Anarchist planets.
Charlie, you must be a bit bored of people saying, oh, what's going on in the world today? It's like living in an episode of Black Mirror. How does games fit into that? Are you using games as a way of escaping what's going on, or are you just taking notes every day for future episodes?
I probably am just you. Well, I do quite often draw inspiration, and that sounds wanky, but that is, I suppose, what it is, from games. So we did an episode called San Junipero, which was partly actually Grand Theft Auto's Vice City in a way, which was like an open world game set in the 80s was sort of what I was thinking about. And I'd seen a documentary about a treatment for people with dementia that was nostalgia-based treatment. And so those sort of thoughts went together. And quite often we've done episodes where there's clearly the USS Callister, which was a sort of Star Trek episode we did, which was very sort of No Man's Sky, essentially. The brilliant thing about that is it means if I play a game, it's both escapism and I can class it as research and work. But I have been playing a lot of games. It's been interesting recently because everyone's obviously been in lockdown, that there is something quite moving sometimes. If you play, so I played like the new Microsoft Flight Simulator that's got the whole world in it. But there was something quite moving, weirdly, about jumping into there and it says, you can fly anywhere in the world. And suddenly you're like, oh God, I can't at the moment. This is the only way I can do that. So I've been doing bits of that. I think, Keza, did you write a thing about, I played Lonely Mountains? Is it Lonely Mountains Downhill?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yes. It's a mountain biking game and it's just.
Oh, I was hoping it was a reboot of Horace Goes Skiing. I'd rather play that. Honestly.
It's got the same vibe as Horace Goes Skiing.
It has.
You're hurtling down a hill.
It's quite unforgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. It could almost be part of that Horace Goes Skiing universe.
But the thing about that, but the thing about it that for some reason made it really stick with me this year is that it just really makes me miss nature. There's this bit at the top of the mountain where you're just sitting there and there's a moment of perfect stillness. You just hear the birds and the wind moving through the leaves before you kind of kick off and start down the mountain. And it actually makes me quite emotional playing it.
You can still go outside, Keza. You're just being fucking lazy.
Well, you know what you should be playing for nostalgia value is like Dead Rising, or something where you're going through a huge crowd of people.
None of whom are wearing masks.
That you
Not
can't
one.
do at the moment.
They need to add a hug button to every multiplayer game. I feel like that would go down well at this point.
Well, it depends if
Isn't
you're
the
playing
one
online.
in Fall Guys almost? There's a grab button.
Yeah,
that's nearly a hug button.
Everyone calls that the cuddle button.
I tell you what, I think our special guest has just arrived, Keza. Do you want me to go and
already?
collect him from reception?
Yeah, go on then.
He's here.
Your
Excellent.
special guest?
Yeah, a special guest for you, Charlie. I'll nip out and get them. Keza can explain.
Yeah, that's fine. Charlie, sorry to spring this on you, but we do have an extra person just dropping in for a little bit. They're very important, so it's important that we treat this with the seriousness that it deserves. Yeah, hello, come on in.
Hello? Hello, is that Charlie Brooker, the Emmy Award-winning PC Zone journalist?
Am I supposed to respond to this person? Yes, it is.
Basically,
who the hell are you?
My name is Steve Activision, and on this podcast, Kelly and Ezra, whatever their names are, they invite a top video games executive onto the podcast. Anyway, here I am. It's me, Steve Activision. Now, this is your chance, Charlie. Let's be honest. You've only won the one Emmy. You've not really made a great success of your life. I'm going to let you pitch your video game idea to me, Steve Activision.
Okay, Mr. Activision, sir. This is Dragon's Den all of a sudden, basically.
That's right,
so
but
you've
with video
stolen
games.
the format, Steve Activision. You've stolen the format from Dragon's Den. That's what you've done.
Look, they're running out of ideas. They've done a lot of Call of Duties.
If you're going to start having a go at Activision for not having original ideas, we could be here all day, Charlie.
Well, I would like... you see lots of games that I'd like to do. One was I wanted to do a game which was like a tech detox weekend. You put a VR headset on and it's... You know, when people sort of go to stay in a cabin in the woods and they throw their phone away and everything and do nothing, no technology.
Sure.
It's that, but as a game.
Right, I'm just a guess here, Charlie Brooker, but do you have children by any chance?
I do,
Do
yes.
you? What a shocker. Yeah, just had a feeling.
Strange. Like
just
the
had a
ultimate
strange...
fantasy is to sit and do nothing whatsoever for an extended
Well,
period
you
of
know
time.
what? Maybe that would be is there a game you could use a VR headset that it could detect where your children are and make them, well, you wouldn't really, it would be bad if it turned them into enemies, wouldn't it?
This sounds like an episode of one of your television programs.
Maybe just NPCs.
Because I was once wearing an Oculus Quest headset, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was on my own downstairs, and I was playing something or other, and one of our kids, unbeknownst to me, had woken up in the middle of the night and came downstairs and just grabbed my leg in the middle of it. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I probably kicked them across the room.
Okay.
But no, so does that count as a game, Mr. Activision?
Does it have a title?
Thing where basically the aim is to do literally nothing and not succumb to any technology whatsoever.
It needs a snappy title, obviously. How about Charlie Brooker's Luddite Void?
I think you need to emphasise the betterment, the wellnessness of it all. Shouldn't it be Gwyneth Paltrow's? For starters, take my name off it.
You can't afford Gwyneth
Paltrow. Actually
Paltrow.
sell some, but Gwyneth Paltrow's tech detox
Vaginal
super
steam.
challenge. Like I'd use the cover from Daley Thompson's Decathlon on the Spectrum or something and just like stick her face on it.
Do you think if I could afford Gwyneth Paltrow, I'd be talking to you?
Mr. Activision.
Yeah.
Have some respect.
Listen, no, all right, I tell you what, Charlie, I like the idea, but it has got to fit in the Activision portfolio, so we're going to go with it, but we're going to call it Call of Duty again.
Okay. I'm up for that.
How much money do you need to make this game?
Well, very little, actually, because there's like very little involved in it. You're sitting in a small cabin. Maybe there'd be a fireplace. That's it. Are VR games built by somebody with like magic gloves on, like in Minority Report? Like, and they put like pixel bricks together and like build a
clearly
house.
You've been to our games factory.
Oh, I know what I should have pitched you.
Should we start again? All right.
I'm going to pitch something else. Here's what I want to pitch. It's a fitness game where you're digging a well. You're digging a well in an impoverished village in the third world.
Okay.
Right? You're digging a well and you're building a school, and you have to, in VR, you're physically doing it. It will take as long as it actually would to do it. And at the end, all these people come up and tell you you're a brilliant person. All these locals with tears in their eyes come and thank you, and you get loads of points, and nothing has actually improved in the real world outside. But you have had a real workout because you've been digging trenches, you've been building a school. You could stand there and teach these children who aren't there. It'd be brilliant. So you'd get a real good glow.
Okay.
So it's a workout for your body and soul.
All right, Charlie Brooker's Gap Year.
I was going to say Charlie Brooker's Gap Year Simulator. Okay, you've got a deal. Right, now if you'll excuse me, I've got to be getting on my plane back to Texas.
Sure, Steve.
Sure.
That's great.
I've got to go now, Charlie Brooker. Thanks very much for your pitches. Take it easy, mate.
All right, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Activision.
Bye.
But bye. So appreciate you making time as ever.
Oh, hi, mate. I just saw Steve Activision leaving.
Yes.
I've got a manoeuvre.
I'm not sure how impressed Steve Activision was by our ideas this time, but he did go for it in the end.
Did he go for it?
Yeah.
He certainly sounded impressed, but then I suppose that's part of his job, isn't it? Is to just sound impressed.
Part
He's
of the
probably like
voice.
that all the time. Sorry to hear you've got terminal illness.
This coronavirus is not great.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
I'm having a terrible, terrible time.
So, it's time for the Quickfire Round. This is the round, it was pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. Don't know if you're familiar with the genre, Charlie, of the Quickfire Round. We ask you a series of quickfire questions, you give us an answer, and then we judge you as a human based on what you've said.
When did this become a game show all of a sudden? This isn't what you told me this was.
Listen.
What the hell? What's next? The obstacle course? What? Come on then.
Tedious.
Sorry,
You're really holding up the Quickfire Round here,
the
Charlie.
quickfire nature of it by rambling.
Slow burn round at this bloody rate. Right, Quickfire Round. Go on, Keza.
Go, right. Street Fighter or Virtua Fighter?
Oh, Street Fighter.
Easy.
2.
Sonic or Mario?
Oh, not this again.
Yes, no, it matters to me, Keza. I don't really need to debate it. I just want an answer.
Mario. Sonic was good, but again, I only ever played like the Green Hill Zone level, probably over and over again, really.
I'm afraid that's incorrect.
Mage or wizard?
Oh, I can't fucking bear either of them.
What's the difference between a mage and a fucking wizard? What are you talking about?
What I meant to ask you, Charlie, was in fact warrior or wizard.
Oh, probably be the warrior because it feels... Oh, no, well, the wizard can snipe from the back with a staff, probably.
Warrior or strong fighter? Oh, no, that's right. That would be a stupid question.
All right.
Sniper or shotgun?
Oh, sniper. I love sniping games. I love them. I really, really enjoy them to a degree that's really unhealthy, clearly psychologically damaging.
You ever played Sniper Elite where you get to watch the bullet go in very slow motion through the skull?
You know, I can beat that. I'm in Sniper Elite. You know, I'm in the DLC for Sniper Elite 3. I'm guarding Hitler in it.
Wow.
And you can shoot me and you get... Hilariously, unbeknownst to me, you get a bonus if you blow my balls off, which I didn't realise.
Wow, I mean, screw the Emmy. This is clearly the
highlight
of your career.
This is why he guarding Hitler when they scanned me in.
This is what he got the Emmy for.
Oh,
he likes to pretend it's for television, but it's
actually it was having your balls blown off in Sniper Elite. Brilliant.
Video games, art or stupid children's toy?
No, we're not doing that one. Next,
let the man answer. Let him speak.
Answer that. Sort of neither. There,
hey,
yeah. I'll be
right.
contrarian. Neither. Fuck your question.
Space Invaders or Pac-Man?
Oh, ooh. Space Invaders, well, that's very different. Space Invaders has got a nice desolate tone to it, although it's not as desolate as Asteroids. So Pac-Man. Pac-Man is a game you can still play today, and it's still very diverting.
All right, final one. Invert the y-axis, yes or no?
Oh, God, yes. Anyone who doesn't is a shit.
Oh, my God.
And
I think you'll find...
I'm fed up with this. I've had this debate with people. People who don't invert their y-axis are outing themselves as hopeless, flipping little Johnny-come-lately, don't really know what they're doing, little fucking worms.
Basics is what you're saying.
People who do invite the y-axis, who, as you've just proved, are psychopaths.
True, yeah. Absolute.
Well, no, I just think I'm fed up with people being mystified as to why anyone would do it. You couldn't invert the y-axis in the first release of Fall Guys for the PlayStation.
Unacceptable.
Why not have that as an option? Like, why make it unplayable?
Well, it was made entirely by normal people, Charlie. That's the issue.
Not psychopaths. But it's good that this is what you're angry about in 2020 with Trump, the coronavirus, Brexit. This is what has really got you burning.
I'm sorry, but I can't control all of the above, but I can go into an options menu and invert the y-axis. Trust me, if there was a menu I could go into to stop the coronavirus and Trump and all the other stuff happening, I'd just tick that box.
No one's found the toggle. That's our issue.
In a heartbeat. I don't mind admitting it.
Oh, well, there we go. I mean, what a roller coaster we've been on.
We did an article about inverting the y-axis on The Guardian last year, and I work on the arts desk at The Guardian, so they were completely mystified by this as a concept for a feature. I'm like, no. It was the most read thing of that month on the whole arts desk was this article about why people invert the y-axis.
Well, there you are, you see.
So it is a hot button issue.
Oh, clearly. Perhaps we should have a referendum about it.
Perhaps.
Yeah, but that always was. Your neck, isn't it? It's like it's to do because the right stick is your neck.
Up is up. Up is up, Charlie. Up is up. Down is down.
Insane. To look down.
When is up not up? When you're
neck.
Insane.
When is up not up? When you're Charlie Brooker, apparently.
What's so hard for you to understand?
This is why Connie makes you play the games in the loft, isn't it? This is.
Because she likes to play uninverted.
2, and I insisted she inverted the y-axis when she was like, and I got her. I taught her to do it. I make my own children play with the y-axis inverted if there's an option.
Oh my God, he's passing on the perversion to the next generation.
Because otherwise, I won't be able to play games when I'm 80 because they'll remove it as an option.
Well, look, now that we've wound you up for the rest of the day, we do need to end the podcast.
Oh, that's true, yes.
At some point.
Sorry.
Oh, you're gonna love this bit, Charlie.
So we couldn't think of a way to sign off the podcast. And obviously, as is always suggested at some point, whenever you're doing something about games that has to end, someone suggested that we end the podcast by saying game over, which obviously Keza and I can't do because that makes us actually want to jump out of the window. So what we've decided instead is to make the guest say it. Charlie, is that something you'd be willing to do?
What? But when was the last time any game said game over? Apart from like Resident Evil said game over, didn't it? Like,
I mean, we can cut.
We can just use
cut
that.
in,
Yeah. If you refuse to do this, we'll just use that. It's fine.
Well, I didn't, but I refuse to give you permission to use my trade.
Okay. I tell you what, why don't I just call Steve Activision back and tell him about your emulators?
When does anything say game over? It only ever says game over in old films in the 80s. It would like a game, and it'd be a robot voice. Game over. The best game over noise is Pac-Man's. Is that? That's the best noise.
It's a good one. It's a good
Films
noise.
should end like that. Books should end with that noise. Game over.
Thanks, girls. You've been listening to Extra Life with me, Steve Activision.
This has been Extra Life. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Extra Life Pod.
Extra Life with Ellie Gibson and Keza Macdonald. Produced by Joel Morris. Assistant producer Alex Hart. Music by Wayne Shepard. Extra Life is a Great Big Owl production for Auddy.
Hello, it's me, Barry Nintendo. Just to let you know, Extra Life Podcast is taking a little bit of a break until the 6th of January. Do tune in then. Bye, guys. Okay, thanks, bye.
We've had some complaints from the various video game executives featured on this show, and we'd like to just make absolutely clear that Ellie's voices do not represent the actual views of any of the corporations mentioned.
Oh, spoil sport.